The turkey was carved, the wine was poured, the family laughed until they saw me still holding my coat. No plate, no place, just silence. I stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the dining room, one gloved hand still gripping my coat, like I wasn't sure if I was staying or leaving. My daughter-in-law, Carrie, didn't look up right away. She was laughing at something my son, Jake, had said, her long blonde hair swinging just so. Across the table, my granddaughter tapped her phone under the linen napkin. The table looked beautiful. Crystal glasses, folded name cards, little pumpkins at every place setting. Every place but mine. There was no chair, no plate, no silverware, no name card with Mom or Grandma. Just a strange little emptiness at the corner of the table where I used to sit. I didn't say anything. Jake glanced up mid-laugh and froze. "Oh, Mom, you made it early." "On time," I said gently. "Dinner's at 5. Carrie blinked and gave a quick smile. "Of course, we just started chatting and got ahead of ourselves. Let me grab another plate." But she didn't move. No one did. For a moment it felt like I was watching them through glass, like I wasn't quite in the room, like I was a memory they hadn't prepared for. I slowly walked to the edge of the table, still holding my coat. "Don't worry," I said softly. "I won't be long." That got Carrie moving. She leapt up suddenly, all clatter and apology. "It's just, honestly, we weren't sure you were coming this year. You didn't RSVP on the group chat." "I don't use group chat," I replied. I know. Jake said maybe you'd changed your mind with your knee and everything." Jake looked away. My knee, my pride, my silence. I had cooked 47 Thanksgiving turkeys in my life. I had ironed more tablecloths than I could count. For 2 decades, this dining room had been mine. Now, it was barely familiar. Carrie set down a mismatched plate at the end of the table. No napkin, no name card. A folding chair, the kind you use when unexpected company arrives. She looked proud, like the problem had been solved. I sat slowly, without a sound, my knee cracked under me. No one noticed. Dinner resumed, chatter, laughter, wine flowing into cut glass. They passed the pie around me like I wasn't there. Apple, pumpkin, pecan, whipped cream in a ceramic bowl I gave Carrie 5 Christmases ago. She didn't mention it. No one did. I kept my fork resting politely across the untouched plate. My coat was still on, my hands still cold, my smile steady. "Grandma, aren't you having anything?" my granddaughter Ellie finally asked. I turned toward her slowly. "I'm full," I said. "The air here is rich." Carrie gave a tight laugh. Mom has such a dry sense of humor. Ellie tilted her head. She wasn't sure if it was a joke either. I wasn't sure myself. They moved on to family games, the ones we used to play, in this very room. Charades, heads up, guess the memory. Only this time, I wasn't on a team. I wasn't invited. "Do you want to join the next round, Mom?" Jake asked, but his eyes were already on his phone. "No, thank you," I said. "I'm just observing this year." I watched Carrie beam at her sister across the table, the two of them whispering like teenagers. I watched Ellie snort at her cousin's ridiculous pantomime of a giraffe. I watched Jake refill his wine without once looking in my direction. And I watched something else, too. The framed family photo hanging above the sideboard. It was a Thanksgiving photo from 5 years ago. I'd made the roast. I'd set the table. I'd pulled the wishbone with Ellie. My hair had been pinned just so, my lipstick fresh, my laugh frozen in time. Now that photo stared down at me like proof I'd once mattered. That night, when I finally stood to leave, no one stopped me. Carrie called after me from the kitchen. "Do you want leftovers?" But she didn't come closer. "No," I said. "I'm watching my salt." She laughed again. That performative kind of laugh people use to wrap discomfort in politeness. I opened the front door myself. My coat had never come off. Outside, the cold hit sharp across my cheeks. I looked back once before closing the door. The light inside was golden. The sound of laughter spilled out faintly into the night. But it didn't belong to me anymore. Back in my car, I turned the ignition slowly. My breath clouded in the windshield. I didn't drive yet. I sat there, thinking. A family that forgets your seat at the table has already decided where you stand. But I had stood too long, and I had just remembered something important. The house they sat in? My name was still on it. Not Carrie's, not Jake's, mine. I didn't drive home. Instead, I pulled into the parking lot of the diner I used to go to with Jake when he was little, the one with the checkered floors and the world's worst apple pie. I didn't order food, just tea, black, no sugar. The waitress didn't recognize me. Why would she? I hadn't been here in years. But I remembered her. The same tired smile, the same pink nail polish. She poured my tea, asked if I was waiting on someone. I said no, not anymore. I sat in that cracked red booth and watched my reflection in the window. The face staring back wasn't hurt. It wasn't angry. It looked clear. That was scarier than rage. I thought about the first Thanksgiving after Jake's father died. I cooked too much, set the table for too many people, left Cliff's chair empty but polished. Jake was only 16 and still. He'd helped me carve the turkey. His hands had shaken. I had held them still. Back then, I was the one anchoring the family, the one who remembered birthdays, made scrapbooks, called every week just to say hello, the one who forgave every slight, every skipped call, every "sorry, Mom, I forgot." But tonight wasn't forgetfulness. Tonight was design. There were 12 seats at that table, and not one was meant for me. They'd simply decided, quietly, without ceremony, that I belonged on the outside now. Close enough to serve the memory, far enough to be convenient. I finished my tea and left a tip larger than the bill, not because I was generous, but because I could be. Back in the car, I didn't start the engine. I reached for the folder I kept tucked under the passenger seat, the one marked Property, Legacy. I had placed it there weeks ago, after the first time Carrie referred to the house as ours during a phone call. I remembered blinking, pausing, letting it slide. I didn't correct her. But I had pulled the deed that night, just to see whose name was still printed on the title. It was mine. I hadn't signed anything over. No trust, no co-ownership, just me. I had always told myself I was holding on to the house for them, for the family, for Jake and Ellie. But what if the house was the last place that still remembered me? And what if that was about to change? I drove home slowly, deliberately, letting every mile solidify the decision I hadn't yet said out loud. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the porch light Carrie had once complained about being too yellow flickered softly. The same welcome I'd left on for them for decades now waited for me. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, and walked to the desk where I kept my stationery, the kind with my full name embossed in gold, Ruth Eleanor Hartman, a name that still carried weight, still held ink, still signed things that could shift the earth beneath someone's feet. I pulled out a pen and began writing 3 letters, one to my lawyer, one to the county assessor's office, and one to Jake. Because if they could forget my seat at the table, I could remind them who built the house around it. The envelope I addressed to Jake sat on my hallway table for 2 full days. I passed it every morning on my way to the kitchen, dusted around it, poured coffee beside it, but I didn't pick it up. Not because I was unsure, because I wanted to be, wanted to believe, even for just a little longer, that maybe I'd imagined it all, that I'd misread the missing chair, the lukewarm smiles, the careful exclusion. But memory is a cruel thing when you stop trying to soften it. I remembered the first time Carrie served me food on paper plates to make cleanup easier. The way she laughed when I offered to help in the kitchen. "No offense, Mom, but we've got it covered." How Jake hadn't once asked how my knee was healing, not even when I showed up with a cane 2 Thanksgivings ago. I remembered how I'd brought my famous cranberry tart last year, and it was left untouched, replaced with something gluten-free and colorless, like celebration drained of joy. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd erased me, slowly, deliberately, elegantly. I finally picked up the envelope on a Thursday morning, my teacup still warm in my left hand, the letter in my right. I carried it to the mailbox like it weighed something heavier than truth. I didn't rush. Letting go of illusion takes time. 3 days later, Jake called. "Hey, Mom," he said casually, like his voice didn't shake. Got your letter?" I said nothing. Just waited. There was a pause, the kind that bloomed between words when someone realizes the story they've been telling themselves no longer fits. I didn't know you felt that way." "That's the thing about feelings," I said softly. "They don't require your permission to exist." He exhaled sharply. "You're angry." "No," I said. "I'm finally paying attention." "Look," he continued, "Carrie didn't mean anything by it. She was overwhelmed, hosting that many people. She just forgot a few details. Like a chair," I said, "and a plate, and my name." "That's not fair." "No," I interrupted, my voice still quiet. "What's not fair is building a family around someone and watching them slowly lock you out of the house you laid the first brick for." More silence. "Mom, are you really thinking of selling?" I didn't answer right away. I let the question hang, because the truth was I wasn't thinking of selling. I was already preparing. Not to punish, to protect myself, my history, my name. "I'm thinking," I said finally, "that some homes are more haunted when the people inside them are still alive." He didn't know what to say to that. He stammered something about Ellie wanting to come visit soon, about maybe doing a belated dinner, about Carrie wanting to clear the air, but I didn't respond, because I had already started clearing something else. The deeds, the accounts, the assumptions. That night I called my attorney, asked her to walk me through the trust process again, this time with no joint clauses, just me. The house had stood for nearly 40 years, and it would keep standing, but now every brick would remember the woman who placed it, not the ones who walked past her like she was part of the wallpaper. The trust papers arrived in a flat, unmarked envelope. No fanfare, no red wax seal, just thin pages and heavy meaning. I signed them all in silence. The notary came to my home, a young woman with steady hands and eyes that flicked once toward the family portrait above my fireplace. The one where I still look like someone they saw. She didn't ask questions, just pointed where I needed to write my name, over and over, in black ink, in full. Ruth Eleanor Hartman. When she left, I didn't file the documents away. I laid them out on my dining table, my table, and lit a small candle, like I used to on birthdays. Except this wasn't a celebration. It was a reckoning. I looked at the empty chairs around me, and for the first time, they didn't feel like absence. They felt like boundaries. No one had taken anything from me. I had just stopped offering it to people who couldn't hold it with care. The phone rang that evening. I let it go to voicemail. Jake, again. His voice was less steady this time. More pauses between the sentences. Hey, Mom. Just wanted to check in. I heard from Ellie you're doing some legal stuff. I was just hoping we could talk. I feel like things got twisted. Twisted. That was the word he chose. Not broken, not betrayed. Twisted, as if I had taken something whole and bent it out of shape. I deleted the voicemail. That weekend, I baked a pie. Just one. Apple. From scratch. I sat alone on the porch with a slice on a china plate and watched the wind move through the trees like memory. The crust was flakier than I remembered, the apples soft but not mushy, warm, real. I thought about Thanksgiving, about the folding chair, the missing name card, the way I had smiled through it all like I didn't feel the bruising. But now, I didn't smile to hide the ache. I smiled because I didn't ache anymore. The following Monday, I visited the county clerk's office in person, walked the halls in my best navy coat, the one with silver buttons I saved for court dates and funerals. I handed them the documents myself, a new trust, a new owner, still me, but now protected. Later that night, Carrie called. She didn't leave a message. I imagined what she would have said, something performative, something about miscommunication and holiday stress, maybe even an apology laced with expectation. I didn't call back, because I'd already had the final conversation I needed, with myself. There was no dramatic scene, no shouting in the driveway, no storming out with suitcases and slammed doors. Just a locked file cabinet, a changed will, a woman eating pie on her porch in complete peace. That's the thing they never expected. Not a scream, not revenge, just silence. Silence thick with memory and boundaries. And the quiet truth that sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you never say out loud.